We live in the age of keep fit in the gym. Exercise has become something we do as a specific activity rather than as a consequence of our daily lives. There are ways that focus on core strength and the attainment of balance, but the trend is to focus on muscular development and the six-pack rather than welling from within and the development of intrinsic capacity. This is fine if you're able-bodied and in reasonably good shape to start with. However, if you are suffering from physical disability, then employing conscious muscular effort will be at best inefficient and at worst damaging. Unfortunately for paraplegics, conventional physiotherapy as practiced in all spinal units is all about conscious muscular effort. Having suffered the trauma of an accident with the resulting paralysis and then spent many weeks on bed rest, there will have been catastrophic collapse of the intrinsic capacity of the body, that core strength and volume that provides the foundation for all functional abilities of the body. You will be small and depleted. The sensible approach to rehabilitation would be to address those deep structures of the body that have collapsed and lie dormant. But the conventional approach is to use muscular effort in an attempt to make the most of what function remains. The consequence of this approach is to lock in the weaknesses, ingrain the changes that have already taken place in the body, and even further deform the structure. With little foundation upon which to base the pure use of skeletal muscles, the body compensates in the only way possible, by creating an outer muscular shell in order to provide a somewhat false stability to provide for sufficient function for survival. By locking in the weaknesses in this way, any true recovery from paraplegia becomes impossible. Such a way only allows for survival in a disabled condition. Wheelchair use is one of the worst things that a newly injured paraplegic can embark upon, and yet we all find ourselves with no choice but to follow such a way. With little core volume, extremely depleted intrinsic capacity, there will be insufficient foundation upon which to base the use of the arms, so every push of the wheelchair causes the chest to collapse. This created a hinge in my trunk here, with the ribs below splayed out. Despite the enormous increase in volume and structural improvements we have engineered in my body, there is still the last remains of that hinge to be ironed out. We still have work to do to get the chest back to its true barrel shape. And let us understand that this deformity was not created as a result of the accident or the paralysis, but as a consequence of the rehabilitation process involving wheelchair use. This way of muscular effort is taken to extreme by the wheelchair racers. To compensate for the tendency of the chest to collapse, they crush themselves in a wheelchair so that the chest is supported on the knees. They then have the ability to build up an enormous muscular shell with which to power the wheelchair. However, despite the power they achieve, this is specific to a small range of movement and eventually leads to mobility of the arms becoming limited, with the rotational ability being lost. Only by opening up the body can that rotational ability be regained. Wheelchair racing epitomizes the way of muscular training that seeks to optimize function despite the poor structural qualities of the musculoskeletal system, creating an outer muscular shell to compensate for the lack of intrinsic capacity and locking up the body to gain stability. Unfortunately, this serves only to further deform the musculoskeletal structure and limit the true potential of the body. In the field of advanced biomechanical rehabilitation, we take the opposite approach, and rather than lock in the weaknesses, we open up the body by addressing the deep structural weaknesses through ABR therapy.